My principal cheated with my fiancé, so I showed the video at her wedding. The USB drive felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds in my purse as I walked through the decorated archway of the Riverside Country Club. White roses and baby's breath lined the entrance to what should have been the happiest day of Mrs. Davidson's life. In 6 hours, it would become her worst nightmare. I smoothed down my navy dress, conservative enough to blend in, dark enough to match my mood. The receptionist barely glanced at me as I signed the guest book with a steady hand. Sarah Chan, colleague. Technically true. We had been colleagues for 4 years before she decided to fuck my fiancé in our shared classroom after parent-teacher conferences. Sarah. Oh my goodness, I'm so surprised to see you here. I turned to find Jessica Morrison, another teacher from Lincoln High, clutching a champagne flute with wide eyes. She looked genuinely shocked, which made sense. Most people assumed I'd crawled into a hole somewhere after the amicable breakup Mrs. Davidson had spun to the faculty. I wouldn't miss it, I said, forcing my brightest smile. Where else would I be on such a special day? Jessica's discomfort was palpable. She knew something was off, but small talk won out over intuition. The decorations are beautiful, aren't they? Mrs. Davidson has such elegant taste. Elegant. Right. Elegant enough to seduce my fiancé of 3 years on the desk where I graded papers every morning. Elegant enough to schedule their rendezvous for Thursday nights when she knew I had my graduate courses. Elegant enough to console me about my relationship troubles during our mentoring sessions while she was the one causing them. She certainly knows what she wants, I replied, scanning the room. About 60 guests mingled around cocktail tables, most of them familiar faces from school board meetings and faculty events. Perfect. Have you seen the happy couple? They're still taking photos, I think. The ceremony was lovely, so intimate. Just immediate family and close friends. Jessica lowered her voice conspiratorially. I heard they're thinking of honeymooning in Tuscany. Can you imagine? On a teacher's salary? I could imagine, actually. Marcus had been planning that exact trip for us. We'd spent months researching vineyards and booking the little farmhouse in Chianti. I still had the confirmation emails in my phone, dated just 2 weeks before I found the footage. Excuse me, is there somewhere I can connect my laptop for a presentation? I asked a passing server. I prepared a little surprise video for the bride. The young man's face lit up. Oh, how sweet. Let me get the event coordinator. Mrs. Davidson mentioned someone might have a slideshow. Did she now? How presumptuous of her to assume someone would want to celebrate her happiness. Then again, Mrs. Davidson had always been presumptuous. She presumed I'd never find out. She presumed I'd quietly transfer schools and disappear. She presumed I was the same naive 24-year-old who'd hung on her every word during my first teaching assignment. She presumed wrong. I checked my watch, 6:47 p.m. The reception dinner would start at 7:30, followed by speeches and toasts around 8:15. The perfect time for my own little toast to the happy couple, a montage of their greatest hits, captured in stunning high definition by Lincoln High's brand new security system. The same system Mrs. Davidson had insisted we install for student safety. The event coordinator turned out to be a frazzled woman in her 50s named Carol, who practically vibrated with nervous energy as she led me toward the main reception hall. Oh, a surprise video. How wonderful. Mrs. Davidson will be absolutely thrilled. She's such a lovely woman. I've coordinated 3 weddings for Lincoln High staff, and she's by far the most organized bride I've worked with. I bet she was. Mrs. Davidson had been planning this wedding since February, just 2 months after Marcus broke up with me right before Christmas. 2 months. It takes most people longer to plan a birthday party, but somehow she'd managed to secure the Riverside Country Club, order custom invitations, and book a photographer for June 15th. Almost like she'd been planning it while she was still destroying my relationship. The AV setup is right over there, Carol continued, pointing to a small table near the head table where a projector was already positioned. We have it ready for the slideshow from the maid of honor, but I'm sure we can fit in another presentation. How long is your video? About 12 minutes, I said, patting my purse where the USB drive waited. 12 minutes of crystal clear footage spanning from September to November. I'd edited it myself during those sleepless nights in January, cutting together the highlights with timestamps clearly visible in the corner. Thursday, September 12th, 11:47 p.m. Tuesday, October 8th, 10:23 p.m. Thursday, November 7th, 11:15 p.m. Perfect. The maid of honor slideshow is only about 5 minutes, childhood photos and such. You teachers are so thoughtful with each other. Thoughtful. That was one word for it. Sarah fucking Chin. I turned to find Marcus standing behind me, looking uncomfortably handsome in his charcoal gray suit. The same suit he'd worn to my sister's wedding last summer, where he'd given a toast about finding your soulmate and knowing when you know. His face had gone pale beneath his carefully groomed beard. Hello, Marcus. Congratulations. I kept my voice level, professional. You look nervous. Pre-wedding jitters? What the hell are you doing here? He glanced around frantically, probably looking for Helen, Mrs. Davidson. It still felt strange thinking of her as Helen, even after watching her moan that name while she bent over my classroom desk. I'm here to celebrate love, I said sweetly. Isn't that what weddings are for? Marcus grabbed my elbow, steering me away from Carol, who was pretending not to eavesdrop while adjusting centerpieces nearby. Sarah, listen to me. You need to leave. Right now. Do I? I pulled my arm free, noting how his grip left red marks on my skin. Funny how I'd never noticed how rough his hands could be during our 3 years together. I RSVP'd and everything. Well, technically I RSVP'd for 2, but my date couldn't make it. Work emergency. The lie came easily. I hadn't had a date since Marcus, hadn't even tried. Every Friday night for the past 6 months had been spent in my apartment, planning this moment with obsessive precision. You don't understand. Oh, I understand perfectly. I smiled, the same smile I perfected for parent conferences with difficult families. I understand that you've been fucking my boss since September. I understand that you planned our breakup to coincide with her divorce finalization. I understand that you're honeymooning in the house I picked out in Tuscany. Marcus's face went from pale to green. How did you? The question isn't how I know, Marcus. The question is, does she know that I know? Marcus's mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. Before he could answer, a warm hand settled on his shoulder, and I found myself face to face with a woman who had systematically dismantled my life. Sarah, darling. What a wonderful surprise. Helen Davidson looked radiant in her champagne-colored silk gown, her silver hair swept into an elegant chignon. At 52, she carried herself with the same commanding presence that had made me worship her during my first year teaching. Now, looking at her perfectly applied lipstick and diamond earrings, all I could think about was the security footage from October 23rd, her lipstick smeared across Marcus's neck while she rode him on my desk chair. Mrs. Davidson. You look beautiful. The words tasted like ash. Marriage suits you already. She laughed, that melodious sound I'd once found so charming during faculty meetings. Oh, please, call me Helen now. We're practically family. Her hand found Marcus's arm possessively. I was so touched when I saw your name in the guest book. Truly. After everything that happened with you and Marcus, well, it shows real maturity. Maturity. She thought crashing her wedding with a sex tape showed maturity. If she only knew. I brought you a wedding gift, I said, patting my purse. Something very special. A video montage. Helen's eyes lit up with genuine delight. Oh, how thoughtful. Marcus, did you know Sarah was preparing something? She turned back to me, already emotional. You know, I've always said you were one of my most dedicated teachers. Even when things got difficult with your personal life last fall, your commitment to the students never wavered. My personal life. As if my engagement imploding was some cosmic accident instead of her deliberate handiwork. I noticed you seemed distracted during our mentoring sessions, she continued, her voice dripping with false concern. All those Thursday evening meetings where you'd zone out completely. I worried you weren't getting enough sleep. Thursday evenings. When I was sitting in Professor Martinez's graduate seminar on curriculum development while she was busy developing her relationship with my fiancé 20 minutes away. I was working through some things, I said carefully. But you helped me find clarity. Both of you did. Marcus shifted uncomfortably, sweat beading at his hairline despite the air conditioning. Sarah, maybe we should. Oh, hush, Helen interrupted, squeezing his arm. Let Sarah finish. I want to hear about this video. She leaned closer, lowering her voice. Between you and me, I'm hoping someone captured Marcus's reaction when I walked down the aisle. He started crying before I even reached the altar. How romantic, I managed. True love always shows. Exactly. You understand. That's why I knew you'd be happy for us eventually. Some people are just meant to be together, even when the timing seems impossible. Helen glanced around the reception hall, where guests were beginning to take their seats for dinner. Oh, look at the time. We should get seated. Sarah, you're at table 7 with the other Lincoln faculty. Jessica saved you a spot. Table 7. Perfect positioning to watch the main screen from multiple angles. Actually, I said, I was hoping to coordinate with Carol about when to show my video. I want the timing to be perfect. Helen's face practically glowed. Of course. Let's talk to her together. I'm thinking right after the maid of honor slideshow, during the toast portion. That way everyone will be seated and attentive. That's exactly what I was thinking. As we walked toward Carol's bustling figure near the AV setup, I caught Marcus trying to catch Helen's eye frantically. She was too busy planning the schedule for her own public humiliation to notice her new husband's panic attack. Carol. Helen called out. We need to add another video to tonight's program. Sarah has prepared something special. Carol beamed at us. Wonderful. I'll cue it up right after Madison's childhood slideshow. What's the title for my notes? I smiled, feeling the USB drive's weight in my purse like a loaded gun. Call it The Real Story. Carol nodded enthusiastically, scribbling notes on her clipboard. Perfect. The real story it is. I'll have the tech guy cue it up after Madison's presentation. Should be around 8:20. 8:20. 23 minutes from now. My hands were surprisingly steady as I pulled the USB drive from my purse and handed it to Carol. The file is labeled wedding_gift_final_edit. Make sure the volume is turned up, there's important audio. Of course, dear. We'll have it ready to go. Carol bustled away, my entire future clutched in her manicured fingers. Helen clasped her hands together, practically bouncing with excitement. I can't wait to see what you put together. You always had such a creative eye for presentations. Remember that parent engagement slideshow you made for the fall conference? I remembered. September 15th. 3 days after the first security footage timestamp. I'd stayed up until 2 a.m. perfecting transitions and selecting the perfect background music, while Helen was busy creating very different memories with Marcus in my classroom. I put a lot of work into this one too, I said. Spent months collecting the footage. Marcus made a choking sound. Sarah. Oh, you're going to love this part, Helen. I turned to face her fully, studying her radiant expression. I managed to capture some very intimate moments. Really shows the depth of your connection. Stop, Marcus whispered, but Helen was too caught up in wedding bliss to register his distress. I just know it's going to be beautiful, Helen gushed. You have such an artist's soul, Sarah. I always told the other department heads that you were wasted on freshman English. You should be teaching advanced placement students, maybe even administration track someday. Administration. Right. Because nothing said leadership material like fucking your subordinate's fiancé in a public school building after hours. Ladies and gentlemen, dinner is served. Carol's voice rang across the reception hall, and guests began moving toward their assigned tables. Helen squeezed my hand, the same hand that had grated Marcus's chest in the October 30th footage. Thank you for being here tonight, Sarah. And thank you for the video surprise. It means more than you know that you found peace with everything that happened. Oh, I've definitely found something, I said. See you after dinner. As Helen glided away to the head table, Marcus lingered, his face gray with panic. Sarah, please. Don't do this. Do what, Marcus? I tilted my head innocently. Celebrate your marriage? Share some memories of how you two fell in love? You know exactly what you're doing. His voice dropped to an urgent whisper. That footage, it'll destroy both of us. Helen's career, her reputation. She has grandchildren, for fuck's sake. Should have thought of that before you decided to turn my classroom into your personal brothel. I started walking toward table 7, then paused. Oh, and Marcus? Her granddaughter Lily is here tonight. Cute kid. I saw her earlier by the gift table. She looks so proud of Grandma Helen. Marcus grabbed my wrist. Sarah, I'm begging you. Name your price. Money, a recommendation letter, anything. Just walk away. I looked down at his grip, desperate, sweaty, pathetic. You know what I wanted, Marcus? I wanted our life. I wanted the house we toured in Maple Grove with the blue shutters. I wanted the kids we talked about naming Emma and James. I wanted to wake up next to you for the next 50 years. I pulled free from his grasp. But you gave all that to her instead. We can't change what happened. No, we can't. But we can make sure everyone knows the truth about how it happened. I smoothed my dress and walked toward my table, where Jessica was waving me over. Enjoy your dinner, Marcus. It's going to be your last meal as a respected member of this community. I took my seat among the Lincoln High faculty, accepting congratulations on my maturity and grace under pressure. The irony was delicious. In 18 minutes, they'd see exactly how much grace I had left. My phone buzzed with a text from my sister. Asterisk, how's the wedding? Are you okay? Asterisk. I typed back. Asterisk, about to be much better. Call you later. Asterisk. The servers began distributing salads. I checked my watch. 8:02 p.m. 18 minutes until showtime. I picked up my salmon, watching Helen and Marcus at the head table. She was glowing, gesturing animatedly as she told some story to the elderly couple beside her, probably Marcus's parents. They looked charmed, nodding along with genuine warmth. His mother had always liked me during our 3 years together. I wondered what Helen had told them about why Marcus and I broke up. Sarah, you're being so quiet, Jessica said, refilling my wine glass. Are you sure you're okay being here? I mean, it's admirable, but I'm exactly where I need to be. I took a sip of wine, watching as Carol approached the DJ booth with my USB drive. Actually, I'm curious, what did Mrs. Davidson tell everyone about Marcus and me? About why we split up. The table went quiet. 5 teachers, all suddenly fascinated by their dinner plates. Finally, Robert Chen from the math department, no relation, despite the shared surname, cleared his throat. She said you two grew apart. Different life goals. Very amicable. He paused. She mentioned you were struggling with some personal issues last fall. Depression, maybe? Said that's why you seemed so distracted during faculty meetings. Depression. That's what she told everyone. That I was mentally unstable, falling apart, unable to maintain my relationship because of my own psychological failings. While the whole time, she was the one systematically destroying my life from the inside. Personal issues, I repeated. Interesting take. Well, you did seem. Jessica trailed off, looking uncomfortable. I mean, you missed a lot of Thursday night social events. And you were always rushing out after parent conferences instead of staying for drinks. Because I was in graduate school, working toward my master's degree so Marcus and I could afford a house. While Helen was working toward fucking him on my desk. Thursday nights were complicated, I said simply. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Asterisk, please don't do this. I'm sorry. We're both sorry. H asterisk. I looked up toward the head table. Helen was staring at me, her phone hidden beneath a white tablecloth. Her smile had faltered slightly, and I could see Marcus whispering urgently in her ear. So she knew now. He'd finally told her. I typed back, asterisk too late for sorry. Should have thought of consequences before September 12th at 11:47 p.m. asterisk. I watched her face pale as she read the specific timestamp. She knew exactly what happened on September 12th at 11:47 p.m. That was their first time in my classroom. Marcus had told me he was working late at the office on a project proposal. Helen had stayed after 4, curriculum planning. Another text, asterisk that surveillance footage is school property. Using it like this is illegal, asterisk. I almost laughed. Now she was trying to lawyer her way out of this. I typed back, asterisk actually, I submitted a formal records request in December. Cited security concerns about after-hours building access. Everything's completely legal. Your signature is on the approval form, asterisk. That was the beautiful part. Helen herself had approved my access to the footage, thinking I was investigating some minor security issue. She'd signed the form without reading it carefully, trusting her mentee to handle administrative details. Ladies and gentlemen, Carol's voice rang out over the reception hall. We're about to begin our special presentation portion of the evening. First, we have a lovely slideshow from the maid of honor, Madison, celebrating Helen's life and their friendship. The lights dimmed. Madison's slideshow began, childhood photos of Helen, college graduation, her first teaching job, pictures with her late first husband and their children. Sweet, innocent, perfectly normal. My heart hammered against my ribs. 5 minutes. Maybe 6 if Madison had been generous with the transitions. Another text from Helen, asterisk please. I'll resign Monday. Marcus will transfer schools. We'll leave Lincoln High. Just don't do this here, in front of everyone, asterisk. I stared at the message. Part of me, the part that had worshipped this woman for 4 years, almost wavered. But then I remembered Christmas morning, sitting alone in my apartment while Marcus was visiting family. Except his family lived 3 hours away, and I'd seen his car parked at the Marriott downtown when I went to grab coffee. The same hotel where Helen had mentioned staying during her divorce proceedings. I turned my phone face down without responding. Madison's slideshow was ending. Helen looked beautiful in the final photo, her engagement picture with Marcus, both of them laughing at some private joke. And now, Carol announced, we have a special surprise presentation from Sarah Chen, a colleague and friend. She's prepared something she's calling the real story. The room erupted in polite applause. I felt 60 pairs of eyes turn toward me expectantly. I raised my wine glass slightly and smiled. Enjoy the show. The projector hummed to life, casting a bright white rectangle on the screen at the front of the reception hall. I watched Carol fidget with the laptop, clicking through menus to find my file. 60 guests turned expectantly toward the screen, wine glasses raised, smiles ready for whatever heartwarming tribute Sarah Chen had prepared for the happy couple. My phone vibrated against the table. Helen again, asterisk I'll pay you. Name your price. $50,000. I'll liquidate my retirement account, asterisk. $50,000. 6 months ago, that money could have changed my life. Could have paid off my student loans, covered the down payment on that house in Maple Grove with the blue shutters. But money couldn't fix what they'd broken. Money couldn't give me back those Thursday nights when I'd rushed through graduate school coursework, eager to get home to Marcus, while he was 20 minutes away with his hands up Helen's skirt. There we go. Carol's triumphant voice carried across the quiet room. Here's Sarah's presentation, the real story. How lovely. The screen flickered, displaying the title slide I'd created in January during one of my sleepless nights. Simple white text on a black background, the real story, a timeline of true love. Below it, in smaller font, September 2023 to November 2023, Lincoln High School security footage. I heard someone at the faculty table murmur, security footage? That's an interesting choice for a wedding video. The timestamp appeared in the corner, September 12, 11:47 p.m. The image was crystal clear, the hallway outside my classroom, illuminated by motion sensor lights. For a moment, nothing happened. Then Marcus appeared on screen, looking nervously around before pulling out a key I'd never seen him use. Is that? Jessica whispered beside me, leaning forward. Is that Marcus? At school? 30 seconds later, Helen's silver Mercedes pulled into the parking lot visible through the hallway windows. She emerged wearing the black wrap dress she'd worn to back-to-school night, the one she'd complimented my teaching outfit during earlier that same day. The audio was surprisingly good. The new security system had captured everything, including Helen's breathless laugh as Marcus opened the classroom door. Are you sure Sarah won't be back tonight? Her voice carried clearly through the reception hall sound system. Graduate class runs until 10:30, then she goes straight home to work on her thesis, Marcus replied, his voice echoing off the empty hallway. We have at least 2 hours. The room had gone completely silent. 60 guests stared at the screen in confusion, then growing horror as understanding dawned. This wasn't a heartwarming tribute video. At the head table, Helen sat frozen, her face white as her wedding dress. Marcus had his head in his hands. The timestamp jumped to 12:23 a.m. The classroom door opened, and Helen emerged first, smoothing down her hair and adjusting her dress. Marcus followed, his shirt misbuttoned. They kissed against the doorframe, a long, passionate kiss that belonged in a honeymoon suite, not a public school building. Oh my God, someone whispered from table 3. I recognized the voice, Dr. Patricia Williams from the school board. When was this filmed? September 12th, I said clearly, my voice carrying in the silent room. 3 days before Mrs. Davidson signed my performance evaluation, praising my dedication and professional growth. The video cut to October 8th, 10:23 p.m. Same hallway, same ritual. This time Helen was wearing the blue blazer she'd worn to the faculty meeting where she'd announced my promotion to department curriculum coordinator. The promotion I'd later learned was a setup, extra responsibilities to keep me busy on Thursday nights while she used my classroom for her affair. Turn it off. The voice came from an elderly man at table 1, Marcus's father, if I remembered correctly from our family dinners last Christmas. Turn this off right now. But Carol was nowhere near the laptop, having retreated to the corner in shock. The video continued playing, timestamps advancing through September and October. Each clip was carefully edited, no explicit content, but the implications were undeniable. The late-night arrivals, the disheveled departures, the intimate touches in hallways where I taught freshmen English every morning. Sarah. Helen's voice cut through the silence, strong despite her pale face. She stood slowly, every eye in the room turning toward her. Turn it off. Please. I can't, I said honestly. Carol has the remote. The timestamp read November 7th, 11:15 p.m. The last clip I'd included, filmed just 2 weeks before Marcus broke up with me. Helen and Marcus were arguing in the hallway, their voices tense but audible. She's starting to ask questions about my Thursday night meetings, Helen was saying. Yesterday she mentioned wanting to surprise you at your office next week. So what do we do? Marcus replied, pulling her closer. I can't keep lying to her face every morning. You won't have to much longer. My divorce is final December 15th. After that, we can be together properly. What about Sarah? Helen's response was barely audible, but the new sound system caught every word. Sarah will understand eventually. She's young. She'll find someone else. Someone more suitable for her level of experience. The screen went black. The video was over. In the crushing silence that followed, I could hear my own heartbeat, the distant clink of glasses as servers frozen in shock slowly set down their trays. 60 faces stared at me with expressions ranging from horror to fascination to disgust. Helen's granddaughter Lily, maybe 8 years old, tugged on her mother's sleeve. Mommy, why is everyone so quiet? What did we just watch? The child's innocent question hung in the air like a guillotine blade. Her mother, Helen's daughter Jennifer, looked like she was going to be sick. Around the room, guests began whispering frantically to each other, phones appearing as people started recording the aftermath. Sarah Chan, you vindictive bitch. The voice belonged to Madison, Helen's maid of honor, who was storming toward my table with her champagne flute raised like a weapon. How fucking dare you? Madison, don't. Helen's voice was steady, authoritative. Even in complete humiliation, she commanded respect. This is my fault. All of it. Dr. Williams from the school board stood up, her face flushed with anger. Mrs. Davidson, I think we need to discuss this situation privately. Immediately. Oh, I don't think so. A new voice cut through the chaos, smooth, confident, with a slight southern accent. A woman in her 40s approached the head table, pulling out her phone. This is definitely a public interest story. Jessica Hamilton, Channel 7 News. Mrs. Davidson, care to comment on the footage we just witnessed? My stomach dropped. A reporter. I hadn't planned for media presence, hadn't considered that Helen's wedding might attract local news attention. Probably because of her position as principal, or maybe the school board members in attendance. How did you get in here? Marcus finally spoke, his voice hoarse. This is a private event. Plus one of Councilman Roberts, Jessica Hamilton replied smoothly, gesturing toward table 4 where a distinguished man in his 60s sat looking mortified. Though I have to say, this is much more interesting than the usual wedding coverage. Mrs. Davidson, is it true that this affair took place on school property? During school hours? The timestamps clearly show after hours, I interjected, surprising myself. Despite everything, some part of me still wanted to protect Helen from the worst implications. But during the school year, on school property, between a principal and a teacher's fiancé. Jessica Hamilton's eyes glittered as she sensed a bigger story. That's still a violation of district policy, isn't it, Dr. Williams? Dr. Williams looked like she wanted to crawl under the nearest table. This is neither the time nor place for. Actually, it's exactly the right time. Another voice joined the fray, Robert Chen from my table, standing up with his own phone out. Dr. Williams, the board has been covering up misconduct allegations for months. Parents deserve to know what kind of leadership we have in our schools. Wait. What allegations? I stared at Robert, seeing something calculating in his expression that had nothing to do with defending my honor. Helen seemed to notice it too. Robert, what are you talking about? The Stephanie Martinez situation, he said loudly, making sure his phone captured everything. The 22-year-old substitute teacher who filed a complaint about inappropriate advances from administration in February. The complaint that mysteriously disappeared from board records. My blood turned to ice. February. Right when Helen and Marcus would have been planning their wedding, desperate to keep any scandal quiet. Had they buried another woman's sexual harassment complaint to protect themselves? That's completely unrelated, Dr. Williams snapped, but her voice lacked conviction. Is it? Robert pressed. Because the complaint specifically mentioned after-hours meetings. Inappropriate use of school facilities. Sound familiar? The reporter's phone was capturing everything. Around the room, other guests were recording too, the scandal expanding beyond Helen and Marcus to encompass the entire school administration. Stop. Helen's voice cut through the chaos with such authority that everyone actually paused. She stood slowly, dignity intact despite everything crumbling around her. Everyone stop. She turned toward me, her eyes meeting mine across the wreckage of her wedding reception. Sarah, you've made your point. I destroyed your life, and now you've destroyed mine. Are you satisfied? The question hit harder than I'd expected. Looking at her, silver hair perfect, wedding dress pristine, face aged 10 years and 10 minutes, I felt something unexpected. Not quite regret, but a hollow recognition that revenge wasn't the satisfaction I'd imagined. I don't know, I answered honestly. Helen nodded, as if she understood. Then she turned to address the room, her principal voice carrying to every corner. I owe everyone here an apology, but especially Sarah. What you saw tonight was real. I had an affair with her fiancé, using school property, while serving as her mentor and supervisor. It was unethical, unprofessional, and cruel. The room was dead silent except for the software of phone cameras. I'll be submitting my resignation to the board Monday morning. Marcus will be resigning from his position as well. She looked at her new husband, who nodded miserably. As for the other allegations Mr. Chin mentioned, yes, there have been complaints. And yes, they were handled poorly. That's on me too. Dr. Williams looked like she was having a heart attack. The Channel 7 reporter looked like Christmas morning. And I sat there realizing that my perfectly planned revenge had just accidentally exposed something much bigger than my personal heartbreak. Helen's confession hung in the air like smoke from a fire that was still spreading. I watched her face, composed, resigned, almost relieved, and felt a strange mix of vindication and something that might have been guilt. This was what I'd wanted, wasn't it? Her public destruction, her career in ruins, everyone finally seeing who she really was. So why did I feel so empty? Mrs. Davidson, the Channel 7 reporter pressed, can you elaborate on these other complaints? How many women came forward? 3. The answer came from Dr. Williams, who looked like she was aging in real time. 3 separate complaints over the past 18 months. 3. Not just me, not just the mysterious Stephanie Martinez, but 3 women total who had been hurt by Helen's predatory behavior. The number hit me like a physical blow. Jesus Christ, Helen, Marcus whispered, his face gray. You never told me about any others. Helen's composure cracked slightly. Because it wasn't your business, Marcus. Just like this affair should have stayed private instead of being broadcast at our wedding. Private? I stood up, surprised by the anger flooding through me. You think destroying 3 women's lives should stay private? I think airing personal grievances at a wedding reception is petty and vindictive, Helen snapped, some of her old authority returning. You could have handled this professionally. Through proper channels. Like Stephanie Martinez did? Robert Chin interjected, still recording. How did that work out for her? Helen's daughter Jennifer had been silent until now, but she suddenly stood up, her face flushed with embarrassment and anger. Mom, stop talking. Just stop. Every word is making this worse. Jennifer, honey. No. Jennifer's voice shook. I defended you when Dad left. I told everyone he was having a midlife crisis, that you were the victim. I brought Lily to your wedding because I wanted her to see her grandmother happy. She gestured wildly at the chaos around us. This is what you were doing? Cheating with other women's boyfriends at your school? Little Lily was crying now, overwhelmed by the adult emotion swirling around her. The sight of that child's tears, innocent collateral damage in our war, made my stomach turn. I should go, I said quietly, reaching for my purse. Oh, hell no. Madison, Helen's maid of honor, stepped into my path. You don't get to drop this bomb and just walk away. Do you have any idea what you've done? Helen's entire family is here. Her ex-in-laws, her colleagues, people who've known her for 20 years. People who deserve to know the truth, I replied, but my voice lacked conviction. The truth? Madison laughed bitterly. The truth is you're a pathetic woman who couldn't handle getting dumped, so you decided to destroy someone else's happiness. This isn't justice, Sarah. This is revenge porn. The accusation stung because it wasn't entirely wrong. Yes, Helen had behaved unethically. Yes, the other complaints suggested a pattern of abuse. But I hadn't known about those other women when I planned this. I'd done this purely for myself, for my own pain. The video will be all over social media by morning, Dr. Williams said, looking at her phone in horror. The district's insurance company will have questions. The state education board will launch an investigation. Sarah, do you understand what you've started? I looked around the reception hall, at the overturned champagne flutes, the abandoned wedding cake, the guests recording everything for their own social media feeds. Marcus sat with his head in his hands while his parents whispered frantically nearby. Helen stood alone by the head table, still wearing her beautiful wedding dress, looking smaller somehow than she had an hour ago. My phone buzzed with a text from my sister, * holy shit, Sarah. This is trending on Twitter. # Lincoln High Scandal. What did you do, *? Twitter. Trending. This wasn't just about exposing Helen anymore, this was becoming a viral sensation that would follow all of us forever. I realized with growing horror that I might have destroyed myself in the process of destroying her. The reporter thrust her phone toward me next. Sarah, as the whistleblower who exposed this scandal, what's your response to allegations that you illegally obtained school security footage? I didn't, I started, then stopped. Whistleblower. That's what I was being called now, not a scorned ex-fiancé seeking revenge. The narrative was shifting in real time, and I wasn't sure I liked where it was heading. Actually, Dr. Williams interrupted, her face pale as she scrolled through her own phone. I'm looking at the records request right now. Sarah submitted it December 8th, citing concerns about unauthorized after-hours access to Building C. Mrs. Davidson approved it December 12th. She looked up, realization dawning. Helen, you signed off on giving her access to footage of your own affair. The irony would have been delicious if I wasn't starting to panic about the legal implications. Around us, guests were gathering their things, whispering among themselves as they headed for the exits. The wedding reception had effectively ended, but the scandal was just beginning. Marcus finally looked up from his hands. Sarah, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest. How long have you been planning this? Since January, I answered automatically, then immediately regretted the admission when I saw the reporter's eyes light up. 6 months, Jessica Hamilton repeated for her phone recording. You spent 6 months planning to publicly humiliate your ex-fiancé and former boss at their wedding. That suggests premeditation, doesn't it? Premeditation. The word hung in the air like an indictment. What had felt like justice in my apartment during those long winter nights suddenly sounded criminal when spoken aloud by a news reporter. I spent 6 months trying to figure out how to live with what they did to me, I corrected, but my voice sounded weak even to my own ears. By illegally recording them? It's not illegal. I snapped, louder than I intended. The security footage was school property, properly requested through official channels. Everything I did was completely legal. The recording might be legal, a new voice interjected. An older man in an expensive suit approached our group, pulling out a business card. But showing it publicly could constitute intentional infliction of emotional distress. Possibly defamation, depending on context. I'm James Morrison, family law attorney. Of course. Even Helen's wedding guests included lawyers. Helen stepped forward, her voice steady despite everything. Mr. Morrison, I appreciate your concern, but Sarah exposed the truth. Uncomfortable as it is, everything in that video actually happened. Helen, don't say another word without your own counsel present, Morrison warned. The school board will distance themselves from this. You need to protect yourself legally. From what? I asked, though I was starting to suspect I didn't want to know the answer. Criminal charges, potentially. Misuse of public property, violation of district policy, possibly corruption if those other complaints were mishandled. Morrison's expression was grim. And Sarah, you're not in the clear either. Harassment, cyberbullying if this goes viral, intentional interference with contractual relations. The blood drained from my face. Cyberbullying? I'm 28 years old. Age doesn't matter if you're using electronic media to cause emotional distress, Morrison replied. Which you clearly have. My phone was buzzing constantly now with notifications. Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, the video clips were spreading faster than I could track. # Lincoln High Scandal was trending locally, but I could see it gaining traction in education circles nationwide. This wasn't just about Helen and Marcus anymore. This was becoming something much bigger, much more dangerous than I'd ever imagined. And I had absolutely no idea how to stop it. The notifications on my phone were coming so fast they sounded like machine gun fire. Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, someone had already cut the wedding footage into bite-sized clips with captions like teacher exposes cheating principal at wedding and revenge served cold. The # Lincoln High Scandal had 12,000 posts and climbing. Sarah, we need to leave. Now. Jessica Morrison grabbed my arm, her voice urgent. Security is trying to keep reporters out, but Channel 7 called for backup. There's going to be a media circus. Through the reception hall windows, I could see news vans pulling into the parking lot. 3 of them already, with more on the way. The Riverside Country Club security guards looked overwhelmed, trying to block access while wedding guests fled through side exits. My hands shook as I scrolled through the comments on the viral clips. Most were supportive, calling me brave, a hero for exposing corruption, but others were vicious. Someone had already found my Facebook profile and posted my apartment address. My phone number was circulating on Reddit. Jesus Christ, I whispered, reading a comment that made my blood freeze. Someone found my class roster. They're posting pictures of my students. Dr. Williams appeared at my shoulder, her face grave. Sarah, I just got off the phone with Superintendent Hayes. You're suspended pending investigation, effective immediately. Security will escort you off all district property Monday morning. Suspended? The word hit like a physical blow. For what? Misuse of district resources, violation of confidentiality policies, and pending review of how you obtained that footage. Dr. Williams lowered her voice. Between you and me, they're looking for any excuse to distance the district from this mess. Don't give them ammunition. Across the room, Helen was surrounded by her own crisis management team, her daughter Jennifer, the lawyer Morrison, and 2 men in suits I didn't recognize. One was on the phone, speaking rapidly in what sounded like damage control language. The other was taking notes as Helen spoke in low, urgent tones. Marcus sat alone at the ruined head table, staring at his phone with an expression of growing horror. When he looked up and caught my eye, his face was pale as parchment. "Sarah," he called out, his voice carrying across the nearly empty reception hall. "We're both fucked. You know that, right?" I walked over, my legs feeling disconnected from my body. "What are you talking about?" He turned his phone toward me. The screen showed a news article that had gone live 20 minutes ago. Lincoln High principal resigns amid sex scandal. Whistleblower teacher faces legal questions. "They're calling you a whistleblower in the headline, but read the article," Marcus said grimly. Scroll down to paragraph 6. I read aloud, however, questions remain about Chen's methods and motivations. Legal experts suggest that her 6-month planning period and choice to reveal the footage at Davidson's wedding reception could constitute harassment rather than legitimate whistleblowing. The Lincoln Education Association has declined to comment on whether they will provide union representation for Chen's case. "The union won't back you," Marcus continued. "Because you didn't go through proper channels. You didn't file a complaint, didn't document anything officially. You just did this." He gestured at the chaos around us. My phone rang. Unknown number with a 206 area code, Seattle. I let it go to voicemail, but within seconds another call came through. Then another. Reporters, probably, or lawyers, or people who'd seen the viral clips and wanted their own piece of the story. "How many calls have you gotten?" I asked Marcus. 47 in the last hour. 3 job interview cancellations. My LinkedIn profile has been viewed 2,000 times since this afternoon. He ran his hands through his hair. My principal called. "They're reviewing my contract for morals clauses." "Sarah, I might lose my job over this." "Good," I wanted to say. "You deserve to lose everything." But looking at his devastated expression, I felt that familiar hollow sensation instead of satisfaction. This wasn't playing out like I'd imagined during those long nights planning my revenge. "Ms. Chen?" A woman's voice interrupted my thoughts. I turned to see a professionally dressed blonde in her 30s, holding out a business card. "I'm Amanda Walsh, employment attorney. I think we need to talk." "I can't afford a lawyer," I said automatically. "You can't afford not to have one," Amanda replied. "The district is going to throw you under the bus to save face. The media attention is already massive, and it's only been 2 hours. By Monday, this will be national news." National news. The phrase made my stomach lurch. What kind of trouble am I actually in? I asked quietly. Amanda glanced around the reception hall, noting the remaining guests still recording with their phones. "Let's discuss this privately." "But Sarah, can I call you Sarah? You need to understand something. The internet doesn't forget. Whatever happens legally, this video will follow you forever. Every future employer will Google your name and find this story." The weight of her words settled over me like concrete. I'd been so focused on exposing Helen and Marcus that I hadn't considered the long-term consequences for myself. I'd destroyed their lives, yes, but I might have destroyed my own in the process. My phone buzzed with a text from my sister. Mom saw the news. "She's flying in from Portland tomorrow." "Sarah, what the hell were you thinking? What had I been thinking? That justice would feel better than this. That revenge would heal the wound Helen and Marcus had carved into my life. Instead, I felt like I was drowning in the aftermath of my own choices, watching the ripple effect spread far beyond anything I'd intended. Helen appeared beside our table, having broken free from her crisis team. She'd removed her wedding veil, and her perfect makeup was smudged, but her voice was steady. "Sarah, Marcus, we need to coordinate our statements to the media. This affects all 3 of us now." I stared at her. "You want to work together? After everything?" "I want to survive this," Helen replied simply. "And whether you like it or not, we're all in this mess together now." Looking at the 3 of us huddled around that destroyed wedding table, Helen still in her champagne silk gown, Marcus loosening his tie with shaking hands, me clutching a business card from a lawyer I couldn't afford, I almost laughed at the absurdity. 6 months ago, we'd been mentor and mentee, planning curriculum changes over coffee. Now we were co-conspirators in our own mutual destruction. "What kind of statement?" I asked warily. "Something that acknowledges the affair but frames your response as whistleblowing rather than revenge," Helen said, her principal voice returning despite everything. "Emphasize the pattern of misconduct, the other complaints that were buried. Make this about systemic problems, not personal vendetta." Marcus looked up from his phone, where notification sounds were still pinging every few seconds. "You want Sarah to lie about her motivations?" "I want all of us to have careers on Monday," Helen snapped. "Sarah, how many people knew you requested that security footage?" I thought back to December, trying to remember the paperwork trail. "Just you, I think. And maybe Carol from the district office who processed the request." "Carol Martinez," Helen said grimly. "Stephanie Martinez's sister." The words hit like ice water. "What?" "The substitute teacher who filed the harassment complaint in February. Her sister Carol works in district administration. Records department." Helen's voice was flat, matter of fact. "Sarah, you didn't stumble onto that footage accidentally. You were fed the information." My mind raced back to that December afternoon when I'd submitted the records request. Carol had been surprisingly helpful, suggesting specific date ranges to focus on, mentioning that the new camera system captured everything that happened after hours in Building C. I thought she was just being thorough. "You think Stephanie's sister helped me expose you?" I asked, pieces clicking into place. "I think you were a convenient weapon," Helen replied. "A scorned fiancé with legitimate access and personal motivation. Perfect cover for someone who wanted to expose the administration but couldn't do it themselves without losing their job." Marcus set his phone down, his face gray. "So Sarah didn't just ruin our lives for revenge. She ruined them for someone else's revenge too." The implications were staggering. If Helen was right, then I'd been manipulated just as much as I'd manipulated tonight's situation. My carefully planned revenge had been someone else's carefully planned setup. "We need to find out what Carol actually knows," Amanda Walsh interjected, appearing at our table with her own phone out. "Because if there's a conspiracy here, it changes everything legally." "Conspiracy?" Helen laughed bitterly. There's no conspiracy. Just a lot of damaged women and poor judgment all around. My phone rang again, my sister calling back. This time I answered, stepping away from the table for privacy. Sarah, Channel 7 just interviewed our neighbor Mrs. Patterson about what kind of person you are, my sister said without preamble. She told them you seemed unstable and vindictive after your breakup. It's going to air on the 11 o'clock news. Mrs. Patterson. The 70-year-old busybody who'd complained about my crying through thin apartment walls in January. Now she was providing character assassination to local news media. How bad is it getting? I asked quietly. Bad. Someone posted your high school yearbook photos on Twitter with captions about revenge plotting since age 16. Dad's coworkers are sending him the viral clips. Sarah, you need to come home tonight. The media found your apartment building. Through the reception hall windows, I could see the circus growing. 7 news vans now, plus what looked like freelance reporters with cameras. Hotel security was setting up barriers, but people with phones were still recording everything from the parking lot. When I returned to the table, Helen was in heated discussion with the lawyer Morrison. Can't control the narrative once it goes national. The Today Show called my daughter asking for an exclusive interview. The Today Show? Marcus's voice cracked. This is going to be on national television? It already is, Helen said grimly. Someone posted the full video on YouTube. 40,000 views in 2 hours. I sank into my chair, watching my phone light up with another call from an unknown number. The revenge I'd planned so carefully had become something massive and uncontrollable, spreading across the internet like wildfire. And somewhere in Lincoln's district office, Carol Martinez was probably watching the chaos unfold, satisfied that her sister's complaint had finally been vindicated through my personal destruction. I'd wanted Helen to pay for what she'd done to me. Instead, we were all paying for what we'd done to each other. The YouTube video hit 100,000 views at 11:47 p.m., exactly 3 hours after I'd handed Carol the USB drive. The timestamp felt like cosmic irony, considering that was the exact time Helen and Marcus had first used my classroom for their affair on September 12th. I sat in my sister Emma's guest bedroom in Tacoma, having fled the country club when the crowd of reporters grew to 15 news crews. My phone had died from constant notifications, but Emma's laptop showed the devastating scope of what I'd unleashed. The comments section was a war zone. Team Sarah supporters called me a brave whistleblower exposing corruption. Team Helen defenders labeled me a psychotic stalker who needs therapy. But the worst comments came from people who didn't care about anyone's side, they just wanted to watch the world burn. Bet she's got daddy issues, lol. This is why you don't date basic bitches. Asterisk principal is actually hot for 52. Would bang asterisk. Asterisk teacher looks like she cuts herself. Crazy eyes asterisk. Emma knocked softly and entered with chamomile tea. Dad called. Channel 12 Portland picked up the story. They're calling it Wedding Revenge Goes Viral and using your senior portrait from Lincoln High's website. They used my teacher photo? I felt sick. My students are going to see this. It's Saturday night, Sarah. Your students already have seen this. Emma sat on the bed edge, her face gentle but worried. Jaden from your 3rd period class posted on Instagram stories. He thinks you're savage as hell for the revenge, but his mom commented that you're clearly unstable. My 16-year-old students were discussing my mental health on social media. The professional boundary between Sarah the teacher and Sarah the scorned woman had completely disintegrated. Amanda Walsh called while you were in the shower, Emma continued. She wants to meet tomorrow at 9 a.m. She says the district leaked something to Channel 7 about your performance reviews. What about my performance reviews? I sat up, alarm bells ringing. Helen always gave me excellent ratings. That's what makes it interesting. Emma pulled out her phone, scrolling to a news article. Listen to this. Sources within Lincoln School District suggest that Chen had received counseling for emotional instability following her breakup, and that colleagues had expressed concerns about her judgment in recent months. The words hit like a slap. That's completely false. I never received counseling through the district. And my colleagues didn't know anything about my personal life. Unless someone told them something, Emma said quietly. Sarah, what if Helen was setting you up for this? What if she knew you had the footage and was building a case that you were mentally unstable? The possibility made my stomach turn. Had Helen suspected I discovered their affair? Had she spent months creating a paper trail to discredit me if I ever came forward? My burner phone, a cheap device Emma had bought so I could avoid the media calls, rang with an unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered. Sarah Chen? The voice was unfamiliar, professional. This is Detective Maria Santos with Lincoln Police Department. I need you to come in for questioning Monday morning regarding possible harassment charges filed against you. Harassment charges? My voice came out as a squeak. Who filed charges? I can't discuss details over the phone. 9 a.m. Monday at the Lincoln Police Station. Bring an attorney. The line went dead. I stared at the phone, my hands shaking. They're pressing charges, I whispered to Emma. Helen or Marcus, someone called the police. Emma's face went pale. What kind of charges? Harassment. Oh God, Emma. I could go to jail for this. Outside, rain began pattering against the windows. Inside, I realized that my carefully planned revenge had transformed into a legal nightmare that could destroy my entire future. The wedding was over. The real consequences were just beginning. Monday morning arrived like a death sentence. I sat in Amanda Walsh's office at 8:30 a.m., watching her review a stack of documents that had materialized over the weekend. The harassment charges were real, filed by Helen's daughter Jennifer, not Helen herself. Apparently, having your mother's affair broadcast at her wedding reception qualified as intentional infliction of emotional distress under Washington state law. There's something else, Amanda said, sliding a paper across her desk. The school district filed their own complaint. They're claiming you violated the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act by accessing security footage for personal rather than professional reasons. But I had permission, I protested, reading the legal language that made my head spin. Helen approved the request herself. Under false pretenses, according to their filing. You claimed security concerns but used the footage for personal revenge. Amanda's expression was grim. Sarah, federal computer fraud charges carry up to 5 years in prison. 5 years. The number echoed in my brain as I tried to process how watching my ex-fiancé cheat had somehow become a federal crime. There's more. Channel 7 ran a follow-up story last night. They interviewed 3 of your current students. Amanda pulled up a video on her laptop. You need to see this. The screen showed Melissa Rodriguez, one of my AP Literature students, standing outside Lincoln High with a reporter's microphone in her face. MS. Chin was always weird about relationships, Melissa was saying, her 16-year-old voice carrying the casual cruelty of teenagers. Like, she'd get really intense during Romeo and Juliet discussions. We all thought she was projecting her own drama onto the characters. The reporter pressed, did she ever seem unstable in class? Not unstable exactly, but desperate? Like she needed everyone to like her. My mom says that's a red flag for emotional problems. I watched my own student, a girl I'd spent extra hours tutoring, who I'd written college recommendation letters for, casually destroy my reputation on live television. Turn it off, I whispered, but Amanda continued playing. However, the reporter's voice continued, other students paint a different picture. Senior Marcus Williams, no relation to the groom, described Chen as dedicated and fair. A different student appeared on screen, this one defending me, Ms. Chen never brought personal stuff into class. She was actually the teacher who helped me through my parents' divorce last year. If she did this revenge thing, there must have been a really good reason. The segment ended with the reporter standing in front of Lincoln High. The school board meets in emergency session this afternoon to discuss both Davidson's resignation and Chen's employment status. Sources suggest criminal charges are just the beginning of Chen's legal troubles. Amanda closed the laptop. Your union representative called this morning. The Lincoln Education Association is declining to provide legal support. They're claiming your actions were outside the scope of employment and violated professional conduct standards. So I'm on my own, I said flatly. Not entirely. There's been an interesting development. Amanda pulled out another document. Remember Carol Martinez from the district office? Stephanie Martinez's sister? I nodded, remembering Helen's revelation at the wedding. Carol contacted me yesterday. She wants to testify on your behalf. Apparently, she has documentation showing that the district buried not just her sister's complaint, but 6 other harassment allegations against various administrators over the past 3 years. She's willing to argue that you exposed a pattern of institutional corruption. 6 other complaints? The number staggered me. Helen was involved in all of them? Not directly, but she signed off on the investigations, or lack thereof. Carol has emails showing Helen pressuring complainants to withdraw their allegations, offering transfers to different schools instead of addressing the misconduct. For the first time since Saturday night, I felt a spark of something that might have been hope. So this could be bigger than just my personal revenge? Potentially. If we can prove you uncovered systematic abuse of power, it transforms you from a vindictive ex-girlfriend into a legitimate whistleblower. But Sarah. Amanda's voice turned serious. Carol wants something in return. What? She wants you to file a formal complaint against the entire administrative structure. Name names, provide dates, go on record with everything you know about how the district operates. It would mean testifying before the state education board, probably facing depositions from every administrator at Lincoln. I stared out Amanda's office window at the gray Seattle morning, processing the choice in front of me. I could take responsibility for my personal revenge and face the legal consequences alone. Or I could become the face of a much larger scandal that would destroy not just Helen and Marcus, but potentially dozens of careers across the district. How long do I have to decide? I asked. About 30 minutes. We need to be at the police station by 9, and Detective Santos will want to know if you're cooperating with a broader investigation or just defending yourself against harassment charges. My phone buzzed with a text from my mother, asterisk saw the news. Flying in tonight. We love you no matter what, asterisk. No matter what. Even if I became the woman who brought down an entire school district to save herself. I looked at Amanda Walsh, this lawyer I couldn't afford, who was offering me a path forward that might lead to justice or might lead to even greater destruction. If I do this, I said slowly, if I cooperate with Carol and expose everything, what happens to the students? To the teachers who aren't involved but work in the district? Amanda's expression softened slightly. That's not your responsibility, Sarah. You didn't create this corruption. You just exposed it. But as we gathered our documents and prepared to face Detective Santos, I couldn't shake the feeling that the line between exposing corruption and causing destruction was thinner than I'd ever imagined. In 20 minutes, I'd have to decide who I wanted to be, Sarah the victim, or Sarah the whistleblower. Both paths led into darkness. The only question was who else I'd drag down with me. The Lincoln police station lobby smelled like industrial disinfectant and broken dreams. At 8:55 a.m., I sat beside Amanda Walsh, watching Detective Santos approach with a manila folder thick enough to contain my entire future. She was younger than I'd expected, maybe 35, with sharp eyes and the kind of no-nonsense expression that suggested she'd heard every sob story imaginable. Ms. Chen, thank you for coming in voluntarily, Detective Santos said, settling across from us in the cramped interview room. I want to be clear about something from the start. You're not under arrest, but you are being questioned in connection with potential criminal charges. Amanda leaned forward. Detective, my client is prepared to cooperate fully, but we'd like to understand the scope of these allegations. Harassment in the first degree, filed by Jennifer Davidson on behalf of her minor daughter who witnessed the incident. Computer fraud charges filed by Lincoln School District. And as of this morning, Detective Santos opened the folder, a civil suit for intentional infliction of emotional distress filed by Marcus Williams, seeking $150,000 in damages. The number hit like a physical blow. $150,000. More money than I'd make in 3 years of teaching, assuming I still had a job by the end of the week. What damages could he possibly claim? I asked, my voice barely steady. Lost wages from his terminated employment, therapy costs for emotional trauma, and damage to his professional reputation. Detective Santos read from the filing. He's claiming your actions at the wedding constituted a premeditated attack designed to destroy his career and personal relationships. His career? I laughed bitterly. He destroyed his own career when he decided to have an affair in a public school building. That may be true, but the law distinguishes between private wrongdoing and public humiliation. Ms. Chen, did you plan for 6 months to show that footage of their wedding? Amanda touched my arm in warning, but I was too angry to stay quiet. I planned for 6 months to survive what they did to me. The wedding video was just justice. Justice or revenge? Detective Santos asked mildly. Because intent matters for the charges you're facing. Before I could answer, Amanda's phone buzzed. She glanced at it, her eyebrows shooting up. Detective, I need to request a 5-minute recess. My client just received information that may be relevant to this case. Detective Santos nodded, stepping out while Amanda showed me her phone screen. It was a text from Carol Martinez, *emergency. Helen just resigned from Lincoln effective immediately. Rumors of FBI investigation into district financial records. Call me now, FBI? I whispered. What financial records? Amanda was already dialing. Carol answered on the first ring, her voice breathless with excitement. Sarah, everything's changed. Helen's resignation triggered an automatic audit of discretionary funds. They found $47,000 in unauthorized expenditures over the past 2 years, conferences that didn't happen, training seminars that were actually personal trips. And get this, Marcus Williams was listed as a curriculum consultant and received $8,000 in payments from the district while you two were still engaged. The room spun slightly. They were paying Marcus? For what? Fake consulting work. It was basically money laundering. Helen was funneling district funds to her boyfriend using made-up contracts. Sarah, this isn't just about the affair anymore. This is embezzlement. Amanda was scribbling notes furiously. Carol, can you document these payments? I've got everything. Invoices, bank transfers, even emails where Helen discussed keeping Marcus happy during your relationship. She was essentially bribing him with taxpayer money while pretending to mentor you. The betrayal cut deeper than the affair itself. While I was planning our future, working 2 jobs to save for a house, Helen was secretly paying my fiancé with stolen district funds. Every dinner Marcus had treated me to, every surprise gift he'd given me, had that been bought with money stolen from the school? Detective Santos returned, immediately sensing the changed atmosphere. Is there something I should know about? Amanda looked at me, eyebrows raised in question. This was the moment. Cooperate with the broader investigation or face the charges alone. Detective, I said slowly, I think you need to expand this investigation. The affair was just the beginning. 2 years later, I stood outside the Lincoln Federal Courthouse watching Helen Davidson being led away in handcuffs. The embezzlement conviction had netted her 18 months in federal prison, plus $127,000 in restitution. Marcus got 12 months for conspiracy and fraud. The local news crews were there, but this time they called me the teacher whose wedding video exposed massive school district corruption. The criminal charges against me had been dropped 6 months after that interview with Detective Santos. Turns out, when the FBI finds evidence of a multi-year conspiracy to defraud taxpayers, they're less interested in prosecuting the person who accidentally exposed it. Carol Martinez and I had testified before 3 different grand juries, helped the state education board identify 12 separate cases of varied harassment complaints, and watched 7 administrators lose their jobs or resign in disgrace. Amanda Walsh walked up beside me, grinning as she watched the news vans pack up. Marcus's civil suit was officially dismissed this morning. Judge ruled he can't claim damages for consequences of his own criminal behavior. So it's really over? I asked, still not quite believing it. The legal part, anyway. You'll never have to see either of them again unless you want to. I wouldn't want to. Helen had aged 20 years during the trial, her silver hair now completely white, her commanding presence reduced to nervous glances and whispered conferences with public defenders. Marcus had tried to approach me during one court recess, mumbling something about never meaning for things to go this far, but I'd walked away without responding. My phone buzzed with a text from Emma, saw the news. Celebration dinner tonight? Mom's making your favorite lasagna, 3 months after the scandal broke, I'd moved back to Portland and taken a position at Roosevelt High School. The principal there, Dr. Jennifer Kim, had actually sought me out after reading about the case in Education Weekly. We need teachers who aren't afraid to do the right thing, she told me during the interview. Even when it's messy. She was right about the messy part. The viral wedding video still surfaced occasionally on social media, usually accompanied by arguments about whether I was a hero or a villain. My Wikipedia page, yes, I had a Wikipedia page now, called me an American educator and whistleblower known for exposing corruption in the Lincoln School District. The page didn't mention that I'd originally done it purely for revenge, but I'd made peace with that ambiguity. Any regrets? Amanda asked as we walked toward my car. I thought about it honestly. The 16-year-old me who'd planned to marry Marcus and live happily ever after in that blue-shuttered house in Maple Grove was gone forever. The naive teacher who'd worshipped Helen Davidson as a mentor had been replaced by someone harder, more cynical, but also more honest about how power actually worked. I regret that it took me so long to realize what they were doing, I said finally. All those Thursday nights when I rushed home from graduate school, worried I was neglecting Marcus. Meanwhile, he was getting paid to sleep with my boss using stolen money. But the wedding video? No regrets about that? I smiled, remembering Helen's face when the security footage started playing on that reception hall screen. That part was perfect. Even if I'd known about the embezzlement then, I still would have played that video. Some betrayals deserve an audience. My phone rang, Dr. Kim from Roosevelt. Sarah, I just saw the news about the sentencing. How are you holding up? I'm good, I said, surprised to realize I meant it. Ready to get back to teaching. About that, I have a proposal for you. The district wants to create a new position, ethics coordinator for staff relations. Someone to ensure we never have a Lincoln situation here. Interested? I looked back at the courthouse where Helen and Marcus's story had finally ended, then at the city where mine was beginning again. Very interested, I said. When do we start?